What's up, everyone? You can party if you're a North American fan, like it's not 1999, but 2019, the last time that North America made it out of the quarterfinals here at MSI. That was, of course, Team Liquid. And it was very similar to how this all shook up. Welcome to the jungle, everyone. dGon, Monty, and Dom here to break down the action from this mid-season invitational. If you love this content, make sure to like and subscribe here on the Deserto channel so that we can continue to pump up the numbers here and surpass the Astralis League of Legends channel. We are almost there, y'all. We are 1,000 subscribers away.
And a ton of people watch this show, so I know the vast majority of you are not subscribed, which is lame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super lame.
The numbers. We got 70,000 people watching. We have 10,000 subscribers. What is that?
Well, yeah, what the fuck's going on with that?
Yeah.
So fuck,
come on,
literally free. It's literally free.
And unlike so many other things,
I'm going to just start having purposefully bad takes to piss people off until we have
that's what I was
70,000 subscribers.
Yeah, and to punish you all, we're going to talk about, Fungbu Buffalo first.
Yeah,
that's the team.
I had some like really fucking bad takes this week. Like one of them was when G2 was 4-0. I just said like that they were being overrated by the community. They actually are still not favorites to win the tournament. Really fucking bad take. After that, G2 just won the remainder of their games, shit on everyone. They showed their fucking prowess, and I'm just
now they're 10-0, and they're 10-0, and they got to pick EG in the semifinals. I'm pretty sure that's how it went.
Yes. All right. There it is. All right. Subscribe. Otherwise, you'll continue to get crap like that, and you can watch other shows.
Yeah, we'll just lie to you.
Yeah. or we'll do even worse. We'll make this hotline league where we'll actually not even give takes. We'll have you guys give the takes for us.
Work for our content. Yeah. JK. I love Mark. Mark's great. All right, let's dive into it.
Yeah,
we'll go straight
Mark
into Europe first.
That's not the problem with that show.
Yeah. That's why the dive is literally better, because then Mark Z is actually just talking about, what he thinks.
I think we have to revisit some facts about the MSI format. So
it's format time. Wait, hold on real quick, Monty. We had so many comments about how many people hated hated the format, and so now you all get to salivate and have Monty just feed you. Go ahead, Monty.
All right, so it depends on how you count this. Like, do you count RNG's rematches is going to be the question, because
yes,
technically, okay, so you do. All right, you do. All right, so technically, we had to watch them. So technically, there have been 69 games played, best of ones at this tournament so far. And of those 69 games, if you count the Royal regames, there have been 39 major region versus wildcard region matchups so far. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. So but we have to get to the point here. If the point of this tournament is to provide valuable games, because you have to remember the vast majority of this format is designed to pit minor regions versus major regions. In fact, that's the entire point of the group stage. And then two of those minor region teams, as long as the major regions team make it through, which the tournament is designed to do. Remember, the tournament is designed so that major region teams go to the Rumble stage. Then two of those minor region teams also make it to the Rumble stage, and then they play some more games. So if this is a valuable format, then surely, we would have seen a level of parity. Even if it was maybe 25% of the games are won by minor region teams. So in the end, though, the actual stats, if we count Royals regames all against minor region teams, were 39 games, major to minor region. The record for major regions was 36-3. Or 33-3 if you don't count, the first Royal games and only count the rematches, which is the official record, of course. Those three games that were lost, two of them were PSG versus G2, and one of them was Saigon Buffalo versus G2. So G2 actually had all three losses, and they all came in the Rumble stage. So what is the point of a format where I have to watch 69 of these games?
Nice.
Was supposed to be 66. And then we only get at the very end 3 best of 5s. Because you designed this format where 80% of the tournament takes place within these games that have been incredibly one-sided. There isn't any kind of parity. Less than 10% of the games from minor to major region teams have resulted in minor region team wins. 10%, less than 10%. It's horrible. This tournament is so fucked. It is hard to describe.
Yeah, I think that everyone's been on the train of just like talking about the format, but I mean, we knew this going in. Like, this is just how it is every year. Like, MSI is just one of the worst tournaments.
Worlds is also terrible, but this is so Worlds. The thing about Worlds is it looks good in comparison. Here is the fact. Here's the facts. In terms of format, MSI is the worst tournament in esports, and Worlds is the second worst tournament in esports by format.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least with Worlds, like the format sucks, but at least you have better teams playing. So like even though the format is shit, the fact that there are better teams playing means that it's just more hype overall. I mean,
wow, I got Dom to be the optimistic guy. I got Dom to be the optimistic guy.
I mean, realistically, like so. MSI is literally, I mean, you can tell by my content, right? Like every other, like I'm waking up at fucking 4 a.m. for LPL while doing LEC and LCS during the regular season. I do literally all of Worlds. Like if I say I'm going to do a tournament, I don't miss a match. MSI is the only tournament that I cover where I miss like literally like 40% of the tournament. Like I just simply won't wake up for it because it's so fucking mind numbing. It's like, I hated watching group stage. Group stage is just piss. Like Rumble stage is a little bit better. I mean, there was some days that were a little bit hype, but group stage is just disgusting. Like that part has to be removed at least. Like at least make the group stage between the minor regions and seed the major regions into the fucking Rumble stage. And then see out of the minor regions which two teams can actually get to the Rumble stage. At least then you'll have closer games. And even if the quality is not super high, at least you'll have closer games. Like that's something that everyone can agree on. But come on, I mean, why do you want to have the majority of the tournament be best of ones? Why do you want 66 best of ones or 69 best of ones?
Why are best of ones even a thing in International League of Legends? The best regions in the world never even play best of ones except at international events. Like they don't even know how to play. Like, do you think that the Korean and Chinese teams know even how to play a best of one? Like they don't. It's not a format that they really ever encounter. And most of them only encounter it at Worlds, right? And then one team gets to go to MSI, and it's just one team that encounters it. It's complete nonsense.
I mean, the way that they just play it out is they're just like we don't really know how this works, but we're just going to show up and play our best, and we'll probably just win by default. Like they don't strategize for best of ones really. They're just like, oh, what do these guys play well? Oh, we'll just ban that and just play some things that we play well, and we'll probably just roll over and win. So. I don't know. I'm tired of MSI already. Like it's even though there's the best of the three best of fives left. I mean, with the forms that I'm seeing right now, I think that we're just gonna get what we were talking about the entire time: T1 versus RNG finals. Yep. I think that's gonna be a lot closer than people expected. I know coming into this tournament, everyone said that RNG was dog shit and T1 was by far the best team. That they were gonna win this whole tournament without dropping a game or something close to that. Pretty much that they were just at a league of their own and no one else could compete. I think that the thing that people need to start knowing about LPL is that like LPL teams have grit. They will actually show up and make you beat them. They're not going to just roll over and die and just accept the Korean superiority. And one thing that I've actually liked about this tournament is I've seen a little bit of grit from this EG team. Like this EG team actually fought in the games that mattered. And like there's a couple times where like, sure, they didn't do anything miraculous. They went 0-6 to G2, but other NA teams would crumble in that like PSG game to go to the next round. So many NA teams would just completely shit the bed there. They would come out scared. At least they're fucking playing the game. So there's some good parts of that. And then G2, like it's really hard to rate them right now because they looked like really fucking good and then they looked really fucking bad. So who knows? But like realistically, I mean, is anyone here going to take G2 over T1 in a best of 5? I think G2 could potentially win if they show up. Yeah. Like if we're going to go percentages, like they definitely have less than 50% chance to win.
Yeah. I mean, I think 25% would probably be relatively optimistic. Look, I think G2 is a team that absolutely, like if Caps pops off, it's just one of those things where can Caps carry this team? And if BrokenBlade decides to play, I think, a little bit more meta and like actually include himself in some of these games, because he's been, for a team like G2, where BrokenBlade, prior to the Caps resurgence, was the lane that they were playing through, he's been kind of
team.
It was, yeah, but now he's just been absent. I mean, at this event, like the Vladimir doesn't really do anything. The Riven was really ineffective. He's been playing like weird pocket and counter picks, but they haven't been carrying games. And it's not that he's losing the games. It's just he's not winning any games either. It just kind of exists for most of the time. And Caps has really been the big performer. So I think there is a scenario for G2 where you look at it and you say, if Caps is like the peak Caps that we've seen throughout this, throughout the early part of the Rumble stage, and then BrokenBlade also, they start to play through him maybe just a little bit more. He starts to improve his performance or like get more comfortable in this meta. There's a world where G2 can win this series, I think. It's not completely unreasonable at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, out of all top laners, BrokenBlade has the least amount of kill share and least amount of death share. Very much like, again, just not active. He's not active.
Yeah.
Some of it is the champions he's playing, right? So one thing is, like, I'm not a fan of BB's Gwen. I just feel like it's never really been his pick. Like, it's really meta at the tournament, but I would much rather see BB like counterpick the Gwen or just take the like L side of the matchup and just play like Ornn or something. Because right now, realistically, we're not seeing the Gwen players at this tournament who should theoretically be really good. Like, Bin was really good at Gwen domestically, but he's been terrible in this tournament. And Zeus has been like slightly better, but still not really like dominant. Like, people are not carrying out their leads and just winning the game by being such a like strong side laner in comparison to the other player. I would like to see BB just take the team fight matchups. I think that when you put G2 versus T1, G2 needs to accept that they are probably going to get shit on early game and just pick things that are going to have advantages in fights later on, because no team has really been good enough at playing side lanes to win through that unless they play against another team that is also playing side lane comps. Like, it feels like, I don't know the fucking stats of it, but just from watching the game and watching the tournament, it feels like every single time I see a team fight comp versus another comp that is worse in team fights, the team fight comp wins like every game between every region and every and everyone else. So I mean, I would love to see the opposite side where you have G2 playing the team fight style, and I think that would be the best way that they could actually take down T1.
Well, I mean, it is the way that they did take down T1. I mean, we have actually evidence.
Right.
Well, but even that, I'm not super like. So the reason I didn't like, a lot of people like that G2 comp. I like the Diana Yasuo part. I really hate the Kalista in that comp. I think number one, I'm hating Kalista like period over the course of the tournament.
Thank you.
I've not seen anyone actually play Kalista to a point where I'm like, that's the value of it. You pick it, you win 2v2, you stack dragons, you're still really fucking powerful at the game. Like, there's teams that I've seen that were good at this, like Rogue, for example. Last year when Kalista was meta, they actually knew how to like get the lead, stack dragons, but even they would throw games like often on Soul, or like the Rogue mid game was the whole meme about that. I really don't want to see Flockett play Kalista. I just feel like he's not like terrible.
I don't want to see anybody play Kalista. So
I mean, look, if Gumayushi is gonna play Kalista, like, let him play Kalista. Just play the Tristana side of it. Accept that he might be fine in lane, but you're going to outscale it. All the pressure is on the Kalista side. And when you watch these people play it, like, people feel so fucking pressured by Kalista. They just like throw at everything, bro. They throw at every dragon, every baron. They're just so pressured by having a Kalista on their team that they feel like they need to fucking do something immediately, or the game's going to just be outscaled.
I think in the last couple of years, like, the time to kill is just so high that Kalista just doesn't have the time to throw enough spears and team fights to really provide value before, even if you don't kill the Kalista, the problem is somebody is dead by the time you can use Rend. So it really is, I think, very difficult at the professional level to play Kalista effectively, because she just needs too many auto attacks to do fucking anything in a team fight.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think people forgot how quickly you were able to stack, like how quickly you're able to do damage. You didn't have to put as many spears into someone to kill them, and now it's not the same. And now we just get Ezreal.
Well, I think Kalista could be good in I think if in the changes on 12-10, there's a possibility where Kalista gets more time. If team fights are longer, then I could see Kalista being effective again. But it's just team fights are over by the time Kalista gets enough spears into people. And as Dom was also alluding to, there's also the range issue where how do you even stack spears on people with the number of dashes in the game right now where people can just fucking get out, or you're playing these poke compositions where Kalista just realistically is never in range. And so, I mean, I think in G2's case, there is a theory of it where it's just a, further knock. Like, we could ask the question, do they really need more knockups than they already had in that composition? And the answer is probably no. But there is a logic where you could use Kalista ult to get a massive knockup, but I think you don't need that. I don't think.
I think that when you run Diana Yasuo, like that's it. Like you have Diana Yasuo. Right. Like I don't think that you need other knockups in the comp at all.
I think that's the only. My point is that I think that's the only argument, and I don't really agree with that one either.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would assume that the argument is that they feel like if they just draft like Orin top and Diana Yasuo and they have a scaling AD, they think that they have like no early game anywhere on the map and they're just going to get run over. I think that might have been the logic there, but still, I think that logic is bad. I think that could be another option as to why you draft the Kalista. But also, it's one of those things where the Kalista is just a scrim champion, right? Like anytime you see a champion like Kalista look this dog shit, but it's still so prioritized, that these teams scrimmed with Kalista and like Kalista was just stomping lanes. They were just like able to get plates, play through Dragon, and it just looked really fucking good. You got to know which types of champions, though, after watching this game for a while, are going to be the scrim champions, right? It's always the assassins. It's always like the early game champions. Those are always the ones that end up being scrim champions where you see them on stage and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, Kalista's just
I really think like T1 especially got drawn into the Kalista trap, and I think they looked better on the final. I mean, it's hard to tell though because obviously RNG was not going to play a serious game because another fun quirk of Riot formats is that there are always a bunch of games that don't matter, and that was a game that didn't matter whatsoever. So I'm not going to read too much into the second T1 RNG game, which is a shame because after again 39 minor region versus major region teams, of which only 3 of those matches were upsets. One of the good matches that we could have gotten was a meaningful T1 versus RNG game. It was something I was looking forward to. But of course, we can't even have that because we're not allowed to have nice things with these formats. So it just doesn't matter. And I can't learn anything from that besides the fact that I'm hoping that T1 is not going to play Kalista anymore.
Yeah, and maybe you think about like, because I mean RNG, they like the TF has just been something that overall has looked bad at this tournament. Like TF has just not succeeded. Like, do you think that RNG is actually going to be like playing TF? I think like having that priority versus a team like T1 in a best of 5.
I think they picked TF on the off chance that they could win that game with TF and therefore manipulate potential drafts in an actual best of 5 and scare T1. That's why I think they picked TF, if I had to guess.
I agree with that. I think that makes the most sense. I mean, a lot of people will say that, but like there's the regional pride of LPL versus LCK. The regional pride is winning the fucking tournament. Like that is what
they don't guys, they don't actually care about these best of ones. They really don't. In fact, they would rather save strats and lose games in this stage rather than show their hand and win the best of ones only to reveal too much and get knocked down in a best of 5.
Yeah, I mean, especially in that best of 1. Like that's the best of 1 that literally means nothing. Like it actually just means nothing.
I was about to say, Monty, you're giving all of EU fans a bunch of copy and be like, oh yeah, that's what G2's doing, right? Yeah, they didn't need to win any of those best of 1s. We definitely had everything under control going into the final day. For you fans at home, we're talking about AD carry pool, we're talking about mid lane champ pool. Weigh in on the comments below and subscribe to the channel here at Deserto and let us know what AD carry should be in the meta right now, because we're just seeing a lot of the Explorer boy until it started getting banned out. Gumayusi played 2 games of Xayah to close out the day, and then we also got to see Gala on the Xayah, so Xayah popping up a little bit of Felio showing up, and then obviously Danny and Vulcan pulling out the good old Samira Nautilus on the game that mattered in PSG Talon. So I wanted to go back just to day number 5, where there were very clear, like, I guess, tiebreaker scenarios and scenarios in general. And Dom, you touched on it earlier. This EG team, who in many times before where North America's been in this position to clinch, they picked a aggressive, proactive composition that needed to do shit with the Nautilus, with the Nocturne and with the Samira, with the Ari, and they did. And like, what do you What do you see in this team from the beginning of this Rumble stage to now?
Well, I definitely think that they had some games versus so number one, I think G2's a better team. Let's just clear that up because people are going to misconstrue my point unless I throw that out.
What?
I am not.
What's the record betwbetween G2 and EG at this tournament?
I'm not
sorry,
saying EG is a better team.
Best of ones don't matter.
Say that EG in the first couple times
G2's won
G2.
Two best of fives against EG, the equivalent. Yeah. Anyway, continue. Sorry, Dom. Continue.
my point is that EG looked a lot worse in the first couple games. They looked scared the first couple games that they played against G2 compared to this final game where, I thought they did some interesting things in draft, and you could just tell that even though they lost the game, they were playing it with their fucking balls. They were actually making sure that they showed up to the game and performed, and that's how they played against PSG as well. I mean, the PSG game, it's not technically a must-win, but it could have ended up being a must-win, or it could have been a game that eliminated them if PSG ended up beating them, then somehow beating RNG and EG lost to G2 again. So it was an extremely important game, definitely a game where the players are feeling pressure. So the fact that an NA team actually didn't fucking completely collapse, I'm already perfectly happy with their performance, even if they get 3-0'd, which they should get 3-0'd in this best of 5, right? Realistically, even if they do get 3-0'd, I think that they have at least competed at the tournament, which is the number one thing I'm looking for. I don't really care about results that much. I think that realistically, when you go into this tournament, the expectation should be T1 winning, RNG second, G2 third, EG fourth. I think if any of the teams do better than that or worse than that, then they have underperformed or overperformed, depending on obviously which direction they go in. But I mean, EG didn't drop a game to PSG. I mean, PSG qualified last year over them into MSI bracket stage. They got a game off T1, even though T1 threw it. At least they won that game, and at least they're playing competitive games. They're actually having games that look winnable to a point. Sure, Vulcan is randomly getting caught all over the place, and there's a bunch of games that are just lost because Vulcan just dies at the wrong time, and the team makes the wrong decision around Vulcan dying. It's not like our support is inting, okay, give him that, and maybe we give a Baron or something. It's always our support is inting, let's turn that into a 5v5, and then they just lose the whole game right there. But either way, I'm pretty satisfied with this performance. I'm not delusional about NA. I'm not expecting them to fucking win anything. I just want to see them compete, and they actually competed. So that's satisfying to me.
I also think that a key factor here has been that they returned to what made them successful in the first place when it came to the playoffs. And there were a few things that I think did very well for them. First off, they did have good drafts to their strengths, and they were clever throughout the NA playoffs. And also, they followed a format of give Danny hyper carry, then everyone protect Danny. That worked out for them even when they were losing lanes early on. And against a team like T1 that has been taking suspect Barons, catching thrown Barons has been an EG specialty in the LCS playoffs, and that is a weakness that we know from T1. So I think it makes sense.
I would say T1 has no weaknesses, but yeah, you can continue.
Thank you, YouTube comments. Appreciate you reading them during the middle of the show. My bad. I think that this has been a struggle of T1. We saw it in the playoffs of LCK, and so for Evil Geniuses, I think that is a matchup that is winnable, and indeed did prove winnable here. And it's not really. I think it's surprising that T1 would play this way, but it's not surprising that EG would win a game with this style of composition. Back to the Nocturne, back to the Jinx. Tanky mid laner, so Jojo Pion can play in the middle of the fight and provide cover for Danny. This is the playbook that got them an LCS title. And they can't do it with Ryze anymore on Jojo Pion, but they can do it with the Galio. And then coming back to the very next day, as in a potentially crucial match against G2, they early pick the Galio, which makes it very much appear as though they are trying to prioritize a comfort pick for Jojo Pion. And then now we can argue about how the rest of this draft went, but I do think it was clever. And I do think that EG knew that they had to have some tricks in order to potentially get a win against G2. And they put up more of a fight. I mean, they put up a fight in a few games versus G2, but they put up more of a fight in the early game, in this game in particular, than they had previously. and I think did seem to vindicate some of their decisions. And they also forced Caps to be uncomfortable on Gwen in the top lane. Now, obviously, the problem of flexing it to the support position is you end up with Ezreal Galio and then G2 final, like last picks on red side, the Pike, and they have Kai'Sa Pike, which is, it's a very difficult lane, the Ezreal Galio, to play into the Kai'Sa Pike, which ultimately I think was their undoing here. But they were trying to get advantages on other parts of the map, and they did for a time. I think G2 played it out well when it came to playing a methodical pressure game, waiting for them to get the right matchups in the lanes in the mid and late game, waiting for the right items to come online, having the Nocturne in order to win kind of, 2v1s in the side lane. So, but I do think that EG, if we look at kind of their last 2 days of games, they were playing to their strengths, and they were being smart at times in the draft and being deceptive and trying to be tricky in order to pull out some wins.
Yeah, and I think that essentially they were just not able to solve one of the problems in that game, which is there's only one player that has TP in the final game versus G2, which is the Kennen. So the trend, even though the trend loses to the Jax, the trend can't even hold under turret versus the Jax because the Jax has TP and they can force a 5v4. So the problem that they were stuck in is that they needed the Kennen to match the Jax, but then they don't win the 4v4 without the Kennen involved. And the other side of it that should be their winning side, which is Tryndamere versus Gwen, they didn't push that enough because they're afraid of the Nocturne then going on to the Tryndamere. So
no, I think G2 knew their win conditions, right? But I think the G2 identified these aspects of the game and played it out quite well. But they did have them off balance, at least in the early starts of the laning phase.
Yeah, I would say that the bot lane should not be as bad as it ended up looking. I think Ezreal Galio, I don't know if it's winning, but I mean, Pyke in general is not something that should be winning into most tank supports unless you get like certain like level ones and stuff. But generally, when you have like an Ezreal and Galio, they should be able to push the lane at least. But I think the problem that ended up happening this game was that their jungler was not pathing towards them. And yeah, Jankos was, so they ended up in a situation where they just like had to sacrifice summoners and they just weren't able to actually push in the lane. And they made a mistake early where Vulcan lost his flash. So there was like a couple mistakes that they made in the lane. But I think that their draft was overall fine, provided that they could actually figure out an answer to this 1-3-1. And I think the answer that you normally would have is to have Drakes earlier, because Baron is a lot harder to force than a Soul. Like Soul dies a lot quicker. So if you end up in a situation where you have like 3 to 4 Drakes around like 25 minutes, you're able to then force the enemy team to collapse to you, and they can't stay in the split with Jax and Gwen. If Jax and Gwen come into the team fight at the same time as Kennen, I think that's a win for EG. So
I think the problem with that, though, is that they were clearly drafting for their solo lanes to have advantages, right? And to put G2 on the defensive in terms of the solo lane matchups early. So if that's the case, then and you have to be in a situation where the enemy jungler can be very aggressive into your bot lane, it's really hard to stack dragons under those conditions. So I think it's tough. I think that they wanted to play for solo lane advantages, but as you say, like the early dragon stacking was a possible win condition for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to necessarily get the first Drake, but like you need to at least be contesting the other ones. And like when you think about G2's comp, like G2 has a Jax mid, a Nocturne, and a Pyke Kai'Sa. Like that 4 is not really strong at contesting Drakes either. So I think that like you do have the opportunity to stack Drakes if you're able to like make plays. Like for example in the bot lane, like Galio taunted to Viego. Like if you like one shot somebody, you could do something based off that. Tryndamere versus Jax is actually, I think that the lane matchups were favorable to EG because Tryndamere versus Jax is a lot better mid than it is top because Jax can't chase the Tryndamere as much. So Tryndamere can essentially just abuse the sustain. I mean, I think Tryndamere is generally a better mid laner if the matchup is fine than a top laner right now because of the nerfs to Tryndamere that we've seen. I mean, obviously if Tryndamere gets to play into Gwen or something that hard counters, it's really good, but like I think that you can play out your bad matchups a lot better mid than you can top. But yeah, I mean, I think EG could have potentially won this game even through like the early fights that they had. Like the Rift Herald fight, it ended up going 3 for 2, but I think that could have been a 2 for 0 easily if they just stopped chasing after they got the kill on Jankos and then the chase down kill on, I believe it was Jax. So yeah, I definitely think that it was possible to play this game out better than it was. But at the same time, it's like I don't know how much these teams are going to actually be drafting like this in a real game, because G2's already into the Rumble stage. So is EG. I mean, even if EG wins, they get a tiebreaker versus T1, I guess, for second seed. But tiebreaker versus T1 for second seed essentially means that you just get to play T1 instead of RNG, which is like nice.
Cool.
Like,
yeah,
like you get to I guess drink bleach instead of cyanide. Like, yeah, I mean, we'll take it. Like,
well, I mean, I think EG has a better matchup versus T1 than they do versus RNG. I think the RNG matchup is horrific for EG.
I mean, wouldn't you say both teams have a better matchup versus T1 than versus RNG based off what you've seen?
I'm just saying for EG's purposes in the course of this argument. If I was EG, I would rather play T1 than RNG.
Well, sure, because you got to win at least. So you're like, at least you have the confidence.
No, it's also just stylistically, because, at least you can see, as we already saw, there is, a potential win condition. The problem with RNG is like EG is just the worst RNG. They're just the worst version of them. Like if you're saying, okay, well, we're gonna scale and play well around objectives and do late game team fighting, like RNG is just better than you at that, and they're better at the early game. So like, how the fuck do you win this game? How the fuck do you win any games in this series?
I mean, really hard. I mean, when I think about like T1, dude, it took 2 fucking insane Baron throws in one game for EG to win. So then I'm like thinking about what happens if like even after T1 threw 1 Baron, they were still fine in the game. They still had advantage of the game. So
yeah,
when I'm looking at the
look,
T1
I can't know who EG would rather play. I'm just saying if I was EG, I would rather play T1 than RNG. Not that they have a chance of winning either of those best of 5s, but I'm just saying I think there is less hope versus RNG because of the way EG plays.
Yeah, I could see that. I think there's no hope either way, is my point. I'm just trying to, I think they should feel absolutely hopeless. Like, they should feel so hopeless that it becomes an advantage, where it's like, we got nothing to lose, boys. Like, just go out there and give it their all. Like, this is like when Gamma Bears played against like T1 in that like, or whoever they fucking played against in quarterfinals of that.
2013.
Yeah, that world championship. Who did they play? Was it T1? I think it was T1. They should feel like that. Like, dude, we've already made our region proud, at least like the people that have realistic expectations. We just gotta, do our best, try to not play scared, and, see if we can take some games. And, maybe if they show up really poorly, we can end up winning a game. That's
there it
mentality,
is.
I think.
Dom always finding a way to sneak in some TSM in there. That was Maple back at the Maple was the mid laner there for your Gamania Bears. I remember that content that they put out for LoLesports. I just searched it and it's Here Come the Gamma Bears. I remember that because I was like, that's such a weird title of a YouTube video. It was a weird piece of content. It was a weird team name. It was all that good stuff there. I appreciate you breaking down the what's up.
Was that Sword Art as well?
Yes, that was Sword Art.
Was Maple on that team as well?
Yeah, Maple Sword Art. Yeah,
Maple Sword Art. And Steak, good old Steak, who's coach.
Also a very good coach at the moment.
Yep.
I appreciate you breaking down that last game. Just because from how you both described it sounded like the draft just gave a smaller window of opportunity for EG to win because G2 knew what their game plan was, knew how they wanted to execute their own game plan, and it felt like, then why are we playing that draft? And you saying, well, the execution on a bot side with Vulcan, not pushing the tempo in mid lane with the Tryndamere, those are all, and then not stacking Drakes there at the bottom, like to force better team fights before it got really out of hand. The TP as well. Those are things that I think people don't take into context after they just look at the draft and they're like, all right, they said draft was bad. It was bad. Well, there were still playable areas within that own draft.
I mean, I respect the fuck out of EG for trying this. I mean, they look. You're not going to win a straight up fight versus G2.
Right.
Like, we have 5 games of evidence of that being true. So might as well, right? Might as well. I think that this is a much better option for EG in terms of testing their own limits and trying to force opponents to play into their style rather than matching whatever they think the meta is, because it didn't work for them.
I will say, last night as of this recording, day 5 was fantastic to feel like what a European fan feels like, and know that the European fans probably felt like what North American fans felt like, where in our do or die game, North America showed up and qualified. In G2's like uncomfortable like game where they're like, okay, like if we lose this to this last place already knocked out Vietnamese team, we're gonna be kind of fucked, and they lost it. All of a sudden, wow, like being in this position, knowing like we already qualified, and yes, we don't have to help G2 later on, feels great. Like you could hear it in the casting of like Medic and stuff. Medic was frenetic. He was like really stressed out, even though like G2 was probably going to be fine until EG finally got their win, and then it was like, okay, G2 is probably fine there. All right. So with all that said, we kind of dove into this G2 EG topics as well. I want to focus in on T1. So T1 earlier, Gumayusi not having the greatest tournament, started off well in this Rumble stage with a couple of early first bloods, but then again, being a little off here. Owner has just been, it feels like Owner has been fantastic. What do you make of this team going into now knockouts against G2? And we'll start with you, Monty, as our Korean expert.
Look, I've been talking about a lot of the flaws with T1 for the last few months. When they were doing very well in the latter half of the spring split and into playoffs, they were basically playing iterations of a very similar composition that I have outlined numerous times, which is to say that their playstyle was actually not very different from game to game. And basically, you just couldn't ban out, like enough of these champions were available to them at any point in time that it was very difficult to ban out the way they were playing, so they could just effectively play one style over and over and over and over again. And yes, these are very good players, but there was always going to be a question of whether they can adapt to a different meta or play a different style of composition. Now, in some of the games that they've lost, I don't know why. You know, Dom was critical about this earlier with this kind of split push style. They were attempting to play split push compositions, and they were itemizing for split push, such as with, you know, the G2 game where they're playing like Riftmaker on the Kennen. And then
let's just itemize against the Ornn, because Ornn
right.
Like, dude, once he gets the Riftmaker stacked up, the Kennen is actually just gonna rail the Ornn in the side lane and just carry by split push.
Obviously not gonna happen. Yes, obviously not gonna happen. But that's the only reason to build the Riftmaker, as far as I can tell. So that regardless of whether it would have worked, that was ostensibly the goal of doing that. And then also you have the Hullbreaker GP. So this is all to say that they are definitely not itemizing to win team fights. And yet they are not playing to the win condition that they have set themselves out for, which is to split push. And instead they are grouping and playing very badly in team fights and forcing Barons and losing at these Barons. And this is in spite of having massive early game leads. And what's so impressive about T1 is that on average, they've come out at 15 minutes with 3,800 gold above their opponents at this tournament. And they've done it with a variety of different compositions. So they actually do have a really excellent fundamental understanding of how to play out these early games with many different matchups, many different champions, many different compositions. But they have almost been playing themselves by trying to, you know, my question is this: if you can play out these early games very well with scaling compositions, which we know they can, why are you so obsessed with running Twisted Fate, with running Kalista, with running Zeus on these split push builds? Just don't fucking do it. Just play a composition that you're going to be able to team fight with in the mid and late game, and do it that way. So I think on the last day, we did see them flip the switch a little bit and kind of, last couple days, I should say, return to, okay, let's have, you know, if we can get the Ahri, let's put Faker on that, because one of the hallmarks of their play has been long-range skirmishing or high-mobility team fights, which is what has been happening. Like, when I talk about T1 style, what they would do is they'd have a poke champ, and then they would have some level of long-range engage, whether it was an Ahri or a Vex or Kai'Sa back, when Faker was playing her mid and building AP. and they would get the long range pick and then turn that into an objective, right? And they just haven't been necessarily playing that way this tournament. And they weren't playing a lot of 5v5s. Like, if we're being honest in LCK, they weren't 5v5 team fighting. They were either poking the shit out of somebody with Jace, and it wasn't a true 5v5 because someone was not in the fight anymore on the other team, or they were getting a pick and then transitioning that into an objective. And I think for me, that's been the missing part of their gameplay. And then couple that with Gumayusi, who just really didn't look comfortable on this pool of AD carries that is proven to be very powerful. As a reminder, when T1 was playing Kai'Sa, it was Faker playing it for the most part. It wasn't Gumayusi. Gumayusi was playing a lot of Jinx, these kind of reset champions. Xayah, which he returned to later on. It's not like he was playing a lot of Ezreal. It's not like he was playing Kalista. These champions are haven't been in his wheelhouse recently. So I think T1 hopefully has fixed some of the issues that they had. It certainly looks to me, the way they changed their drafts, that they have returned to something that they will be better at. And I really just don't want to see any more TF or Kalista from them. That is my prayer.
Yeah. Well, I want G2 to win, so I hope that they keep on doing everything that they've been doing. I want to see just them lose in semifinals after the people wanted to declare them the winners of the world champion. This team, this team is going to be world championship team in March. Motherfuckers, it was March. Hello?
For my own personal enjoyment of having to watch Joe Marsh retreat all of his ridiculous statements that he's made over the past few months, I hope you're right. I would love to see T1 lose, to watch Joe Marsh burn, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I mean, again, if you want to know the craziness of the fan base, look at Dom's retweet earlier of Munchables saying, this T1 team is overhyped. The comment section, Dom, that was a good 10-minute read.
They were overhyped. We've been trying to pour water on that fire for a while. Like everybody's been saying, this team is overhyped. They do make mistakes, guys. They do. They're not foolproof.
I mean, look, who even knows if they would have went undefeated if they played against full strength rosters permanently with out all these COVID
Dom,
situations?
Are you saying that the second place team that they played twice, both times without the full roster, Gen G, the results could have been different? I don't know about that.
I don't know. Or maybe they could have just lost a game to a team like Damwon. It's not like they had these games where they were just stomping everyone the whole time. It's just for some reason, because they kept on getting a win in the column every single time, people were like, yeah, but they just drop a game. There was just all these excuses for bad play, where it's I don't understand why every team that's winning your region has to be the best team in the fucking world. I mean,
T1 didn't play well in the finals. They did not play well in the finals.
Yeah, but then it was then the players had COVID for that, so then you can't even count. I don't know. All I'm saying is, when I'm watching these games, I don't think that T1 is playing that much differently in terms of sure, they're drafting different champions, but in terms of their overall gameplay, I don't think that they're playing that much differently than they played domestically. They still are having pretty good early games, and they're still having very questionable things happen in the mid game. You see Gumayusi still loses summoners on mid when he's holding, which was a core thing of that G2 that T1 would have happen. We saw it in the it wasn't the G2 game. I think maybe it was the Saigon Buffalo game, actually, where he's just holding mid. And he just walks up, loses both summoners and his ult on Xayah, and then suddenly the whole game just kind of collapses, and they end up winning the fight, but it's it puts you in a disadvantaged situation versus good teams. You're gonna get punished there. So look, I think that
and by the way, this is not a new problem. The way that this was solved earlier this year was that Korea would play Thresh, and he would stand in mid with Gumayusi with his lantern ready, because he knew Gumayusi was going to walk up in that mid lane and try and attack that tier 1 turret, and so he would save him with Tom Kench or with Thresh. Now they're not playing those champions anymore. You see some of the faults in Gumayusi's play, because Gumayusi has not changed his play style, but those tools to have him escape do not exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he was better in lane domestically for sure. He was just better at lane. He wasn't dying in lane every single game domestically. I think that it's just the T1 style was mainly that they were good at lane. They were good at these early Rift Herald swaps, which they've been questionable at the Rift Herald swaps throughout this tournament, which has been a little bit weird to me. I would expect them to just be by far the cleanest. I mean, look, RNG, when we were watching RNG versus TS, RNG could not win a Rift Herald no matter what the fuck happened. They could be somehow 5v1 on Rift Herald. Whoever they're fucking playing against is going to just 1v5 pen to them and get the Rift. They could not win a Rift fight to save their entire fucking lives. And then somehow, like, they're behind in the game versus T1 and they're winning a Rift fight versus T1. They get like a 3-0 on Rift. What the hell? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to make out of these situations. I will say that, like, I think RNG's early game has been a lot better than it was domestically. Sure. But it's hard to say. I mean, I thought
to be fair, they're also not playing against Top's insane early game, right? So they did look bad in comparison to a very good early game team.
Sure, but I would have expected, like, when I was watching T1, I thought that T1 was a better early game team than Top. Watching them, like, especially around Rift Herald, I thought that that they were just really good at that in comparison. So, I mean, I coming into this tournament, I definitely had T1 first. I was T1 first, RNG second, G2 third, EG fourth, right? Despite the fact that maybe there have been a few more flaws in T1's early game, like, just straight up, they're still controlling over 80% of the Rift Heralds in their game so far. They've played 16 games. They literally have gotten the first 3 turrets in every single game they have played. They are 16-0 when it comes to knocking down the first 3 turrets. They are 15-1 in getting the first turret of the game. So they're still doing incredibly well. Yeah. I mean, I still think that they can win the tournament. I thought that they would stomp harder personally from watching them play. I thought that they were better than RNG. I mean, RNG looked pretty fucking sus for, like, the majority of LPL. Like, the way that RNG was winning games, like, go watch, like, RNG versus TS either of the times they played them. Watch the best of 5. Like, it's like, all right, so you're down like 10k gold, and then I guess Gala's like carrying a team fight. Oh, I guess you won the game. Like, it mainly looked like TS was collapsing rather than RNG was like a godlike team. I will say, though, at this tournament, from watching it, though, I think that it's going to be close. I mean, I think that RNG and T1 should end up in the finals.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I think RNG could win this. I really feel like they're.
I think RNG can absolutely win this tournament. I don't think they will. I think I still tip it like 60-40 probably to T1, because I think that they have. I think they have a more balanced roster, and I think they have more carry threats. And, like, I'm incredibly concerned about the Zeus and Bin matchup in terms of Bin's performance. I think top side of the map is generally stronger, and I think Zeus has been having an amazing tournament so far. I think he has been a huge damage and carry threat on T1. So for me, it really comes down to whether Gala is just going to pop the fuck off for RNG, which is absolutely possible. But I also don't know. I think T1 has been experimenting. I think in the first game that they played against RNG, they tried very deliberately to pinch the jungle pool and force way onto Volibear, and they still should have won that game. Arguably, they did throw that game.
Fuck, they actually lost to Waze Volibear. Like, how do you lose to Waze Volibear? Like,
so the second game, they more aggressively pinched the 80 carry pool and tried to get the Kai'Sa. Sure, I'm just saying their tactics switched in the draft. And I do wonder what if Gala is going to be as good if he's not on Ezreal and Kai'Sa, and T1 has these luxury bans if RNG's on the red side.
I don't think you're losing the series by Gala's hand. Like, I don't think that you're going to pinch Gala and get him out of the series. I mean, his Aphelios was what he was playing domestically. Like, I mean, How many Aphelios games did he play? Let me check. But yeah, I mean, I haven't been as impressed with Zeus, mainly just because, like, there's been so many games where I felt like he should carry harder than he has been. Like the Kennen game,
he's been carrying pretty hard.
But, like, not like, so I mean, he's been carrying hard in terms of what? Like, if you look at stats, he's been carrying hard. If you're actually watching the games, like, he's having games where he should just be able to run away with it. Like the Kennen game, for example, I think that the Kennen game versus G2, it's like he's the reason why it's hard to play Diane Yasuo. But then because he's going Riftmaker Cosmic Drive, which is like, I don't even understand the Cosmic Drive at all.
Don't get me started. I mean, we already talked about that.
But there's that game, like, the first game versus Bin, where he's playing Gwen into Camille, which is a good matchup, and he gets like the solo kill where Bin just pretty much ints, and he's 2-0 early on in that game. I feel like the Gwen should not be like 2-6 at a point.
Look, I think he has sabotaged himself through the builds, but it was very clear that T1 wanted to play in this like 1-3-1 style in some of these games, which I just fundamentally disagree with as like a team decision. So I think his itemization in some of these games has been extremely suspect, which has prevented him from doing the carrying that you want to see. However, there were also some very good exhausts on him during the G2 game, and I think that G2 executed that comp relatively well. So I do think some of the credit deserves to go to G2 for how they played. I just don't think we're going to see T1 try that bullshit again. I hope we don't.
Sure. No, I definitely think that G2 like deserves credit for being able to come back into the game. But I mean, at least the way that I see League is, if you have that big of advantage that T1 has, like comp versus comp, and you play the game out well, I don't think the enemy team can come back. Like, they're essentially playing a 4v5. The Kalista is completely fucking useless. The Diana Yasuo is the main thing they have to worry about. And even through the exhaust, like, it's really good against exhaust having a Zhonya's, because even if you do get exhausted, then you press your Zhonya.
Dude, that Riftmaker, I was just so confused. I was just sitting there being like, I don't understand how this is, because the problem with the Riftmaker is like, by the time the Riftmaker is fully operational, you're just going to be exhausted anyway. So like, when is it going to do? At what point in time is it going to do enough damage, like sustained damage in a fight, in order for this to be useful? It's fucking weird. It's
really fucking weird. It's really fucking weird. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we'll have to
so
see.
Anyway, I agree with you about that game, but also like, who knows why he built that way? But he didn't do it again. So
yeah, true. I mean, he didn't play Kennen again though, really, and like the other champions that he's playing don't really have that. They don't have the build. Well, I mean, to be honest, he's been inting his builds like the entire tournament, right? Like the GP going Hullbreaker was also equally fucking bad. So like, for me, the more I think about it, it's like, no, he doesn't get a pass. This guy's just building fucking random items. Like, he's literally just fucking getting scammed by Boris every single time.
No, he's getting scammed by Boris twice in 16 games.
No, he did the GP thing twice just then.
Oh.
He's done the GP thing twice.
All right. I agree. It's too much. It's too much. But I also just don't think we're going to see these split push builds again. I think that this is something that they were probably having success with in scrims that isn't translating to how they play on stage. I would be shocked if we saw him do this again. But maybe he will.
Yeah. What do you think? How do you think G2 is going to come back? We haven't really talked about like the G2's their tournament, because it's been very. I mean, it was like they were like the best team in the tournament, and then they were the worst team in the tournament, and then they were like they beat NA in the final game. So yeah, I mean, I think that is something that's probably worth talking about.
It's making God or Dog interesting. At the beginning, it was like, oh shit, take your pick. and now it's Dog. It's like, oh, take your pick. Yeah, let's look into G2 and their historic unbeaten streak coming to an end, and then also an unprecedented like losing streak after a winning streak like that. Maybe it's not unprecedented, but on the international stage, they just straight up lost form here, Monty.
I think they were ride or dying by Caps having these fucking absolutely insane games and insane individual performances. And when that stopped happening, I think you see a lack of carry threat on this team. Because I don't know what's going on with like BrokenBlade and like the Vladimir counterpick into Gwen, but it just doesn't seem to do anything. Like it just exists on the map, and I talked about this earlier on the show, but he just doesn't seem to be a major threat or presence in many of these games. And when he should have the burden to carry, such as when he's playing Riven and you draft a Yuumi, which basically means that you are really hoping that Riven has a massive effect at some point in the game, he gets completely neutralized. He can never engage, because I don't even know why he's running TP in this game instead of flashing Knight. And I think also they intelligently picked exhaust to deal with it, but I think you actually just have to be all in on that decision. And if you make that choice, then there's an expectation that BrokenBlade shows up and is carrying these matches. And that just hasn't been the case. Like he's had a very mediocre tournament, and if you want to win MSI, you can't have one guy having great games half the time, and that's it. That's not a formula for a championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the picks don't suit him well. So I think that one of the issues that they're running into is that he's not that great of a Gwen player. I think like all time he's got like 1 win and 6 losses, or like 1 win and 5 losses. It's like he's just not had success in the champion historically. And then I think a lot of teams they've just been like banning the Ornn, you know, like they're just not letting him play Ornn. So either they're gonna have to start early picking the Ornn, because I think it's getting banned in second phase. Some teams are actually banning it first phase too. Or they need to find other champions that are going to actually suit the team fight style that G2 has, because this is not the same G2 as the regular season within LEC, where, you know, G2's whole win condition was top lane, right? Like they were playing Akshan and they were playing Tryndamere all the time, and they were essentially just getting counterpick for BB. They're playing Yone top as well, getting counterpick for BB, and just like trying to have everything else on the map go stable, and then he would just win the lane with counterpick. I feel like right now the counterpicks are not as severe to the champions that we're seeing. And then also I think part of it is that not only are the counterpicks not as severe, the champions that are supposed to be the counter side, so right now like there's a lot of Gwen GP, they're not like BB's best champions either. So he normally the thing that BB has is he has like one pick that no one else is playing except for him, or that not many people are playing, that he can really use to abuse the meta, and it's normally like a counter to one of the main things that's being played. But right now, it doesn't seem like he has like a Gwen answer, right? Like his Gwen answers are Vladimir, which is whatever. I mean, pretty much everyone's playing Gwen against him, right? So he's playing Vladimir versus Gwen, which, I mean, I get it. It's supposed to be that Vlad is better in team fights, and Vlad has pretty good lane. And if you get Vlad a free lane, it's good. But I mean, the
Vlad was never in these team fights. I think that's one of the main issues, is that he's just never there. Like, I mean, you have Ghost Ignite, right? So like you're not going to be able to TP. You're going to actually have to like figure out when you're team fighting. Like every game, if you watch the Vlad, it's like G2's fighting, and then just the BrokenBlade just shows up at the end with Vlad and like Qs once, and then he just runs around in a circle. Like the game, the fights are over by the time he shows up.
Yeah, but I think that's more on his team, like not really knowing when they're fighting. So so there's that. But my point is, like, when you think about Gwen, right? Like people are picking Gwen every game. It seems like he's not a good Gwen, so you're going to be playing against Gwen every game. He's tried GP into it. It was like okay. Or maybe his GP game was actually terrible. But like the point is he played GP, he's played Vlad, he's played Riven. Like none of these picks seem to be actually taking over the game. When they gave Ornn and he played Aatrox into it, didn't look good either.
Aatrox,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like he just hasn't had the counter picks of this tournament. So I'd like to see him.
Which is interesting, because Aatrox is actually his most played champ of all time.
Yeah,
and it's supposed to counter the Ornn, but
right, and it's supposed to be an Ornn counter.
Do you think that's G2 hiding it? Just because there's no Gnar. Gnar has kind of disappeared, and that was something he's played a lot. We saw Jax earlier in the tournament, and that kind of like started falling off here. Maybe it's just something that they're sitting on, and maybe there was a sense of like, we've won so many games, and we're one away from like getting into the playoff stage. Let's start experimenting a little bit with these drafts. Let's start experimenting as we're going to see these types of matchups.
There's definitely some experimentation. I don't think that if they're playing a do or die game, BB's going to pick Riven into Gwen there. I think that's something that they probably practiced a couple times, and they saw an opportunity for it, so they tried it. And they didn't actually need to win that game. But that being said, that when they went to their like trying things phase, like I don't think they actually gained anything from it. I think they just lost confidence just in general, and their picks didn't end up working out. There was nothing that I saw that I was like, damn, let's actually run back to Kalista. Let's run back to Riven. Yep. Let's keep these Vlad games going. I don't know.
Let's use the Anivia. Yeah. I mean, not even.
Anivia, I think, is fine in certain situations, but
yeah, I thought it was good when I played against EG.
Yeah, it's good into Rise. It's good into like these short range mages. I mean, it theoretically should be good into Galio, but the problem is that Galio can actually engage on you. In a lot of circumstances, so it just becomes like a little bit more risky because you can get killed, which happened in this game. I don't know what to make of G2 though, because like a lot of like, I know a lot of people were really hyped, and they were like they're the best team in the world or like something because they beat RNG and T1 the first day. But I think it's really hard for me to see them winning more than one game versus T1.
I think a lot of their wins have come off the fact that Caps is the highest peaking player at this tournament, which can get you wins.
Is he the highest peaking player at this tournament?
I think he's had the highest peaks. I don't think he's been the most consistent. I think he's also not been really around in some of these games, but I think on an individual level, he's had some very impressive games.
Yeah, I think he's had some impressive games. I guess for me, my highest peaking player would be Gala. I think Gala looks like the best player in the tournament. But still, yeah, no, I definitely agree that Caps is a really insane player. I think it's really hard to just carry a team if the team is not being coordinated, and I just don't see how they're going to how Caps can be in a situation to carry 3 out of 5 games versus T1.
Look, I'm not arguing they're going to win. I think they have a very small chance of winning. Yeah. I'm saying that the reason why they have won games, I think, is because of Caps's peak performances, and that there has to be a different solution in a best of 5, unless you're going to say we're going to get insane Caps for 5 games straight, right? And I think it's been disappointing because BrokenBlade is a player who helped get them here and seems just really non-existent in these matches. He's definitely not losing them games, but if you have weird picks, then you have to make them work, and they have to actually provide threat to the enemy team, which he has failed to do for the most part.
Look, I want to see, this is what I want to see. I want to see no Graves out of Yankos. I want to just see him on things that can gank.
Sure.
Period. I want to see Caps playing whatever the fuck he wants. BB on team fighters. And I want to see Flockett off Callista on Ezreal, Kaisa, whatever. Xayah. I want to see Xayah come back. And I want to see Targamas on champions that have big abilities to affect team fights. I think that's the way that they have to win. They have to out team fight T1. And they have to set themselves up for it. So, yeah, I don't.
I mean, that was the way that they beat them in the first game, right? That was opting into massive engages and massive team fights.
Leona, Nautilus, Rakan. I'm assuming just somewhere in there.
Yeah, Leona, Nautilus, Rakan, Renata. I think is fine for. I think he was really good at Renata. I think Targamas Renata. If the enemy team's blind picking engaged champions, or the enemy team has a lot of engage on their team, boom, slam a Renata, make them run into the ult and kill each other. That's fine for me. I'm just not a fan of a lot of their I mean, look, they have weaknesses. Even though Gumayushi and Keria have been straight up bad in lane, I don't know how much you can bank on Gumayushi Keria being bad in lane. I don't think that Flockett and Targamas should be drafting as if they are going.
They're
to
the dominant duo.
Need to win lane that. I don't think that can be a win condition. I think you have to cover your weaknesses. Generally, they're not super good in the laning phase bot lane. Yeah, I mean, mid jungle, you need something that has the ability to gank, and then BB needs champions that he's comfortable on, which is not Gwen.
But before we get to, I guess, predictions and stuff, I did want to put a closing chapter here on PSG Talon and Saigon Buffalo. Dom, you were calling out this Saigon Buffalo probably deserved better than what they got in a couple of games. They've played really well and didn't get the results. What do you make of this Vietnamese squad? That was the number 2 squad, while their number 1 team went on to go win the SEA Games over my Philippine squad.
Yeah, I mean, I liked watching the Buffalo play. I think that they had some B&J in the first couple of days was just awful, but he played a lot better in the final ones. I like their game versus RNG. I think that they played one of the best games of the tournament versus RNG. So far, they had really nice engages in this game, good kicks, good flash charms with Ari. And I felt like they're one of the only teams to stand up and just go and fight RNG. It feels like a lot of teams have let RNG get away with a lot of bullshit early game, and it's dude, RNG, they have a scuffed ass early game most of the time. They are making mistakes. Don't be afraid of RNG early game. Be afraid of what they do in the mid to late game if they're close in gold, but don't give them that much respect early game. I like to see that Saigon Buffalo actually played well in those games. And then also, I mean, they went out with what? They got 3 wins. They were tied with PSG, right? 3-7, I think. They were both 3-7. Didn't Buffalo? So Buffalo won.
No, they were 2-8 because they split with PSG Talon and then they beat G2. So
they lost.
But PSG Talon
they lost.
won both games against G2. So
yeah, that's unfortunate. But I mean, either way, the point is that they
actually that RNG almost felt like a win.
Yeah, it's true. The RNG game was very close, and I think what was encouraging about the later edition of Saigon Buffalo is that they seem to really like understand the win conditions of their composition. And the game against G2 was an extremely smooth snowball where they were very deliberately giving B&J the kills on the jungle Gwen. You know, they did fake out, you know, they knew they correctly predicted like BrokenBlade is going to play Vladimir into this Gwen if we show it. And then we're going to like try and get the Aatrox into the Vladimir and try out this jungle Gwen and see if we can get some support for jungle Gwen to get the kills early, get the Riftmaker online as fast as possible. And they played a very like smooth game of League of Legends. And I think that in many ways, they were more impressive in the mid and late game in terms of capitalizing on their advantages than like T1 was in the early parts of this tournament. So I think there was a level of strategy here to the way they played out their compositions that made me a lot happier than watching them in the first part of the Rumble stage. I don't know if they were nervous and ended up getting over that, but I think that they were unfortunately not as competitive as I was led to believe given their performance in the group stage. And I'm glad we finally got there.
How do we feel about Talon? Talon's performance, obviously new look Talon as they made their changes again back-to-back PCS championships, but new players specifically in the mid lane, you know, Mykles being pilfered into the LPL as well as into now over at TSM.
Really hard to say because I feel like they had bunches of games where they kind of were getting stomped, but then they had those two pretty good games against G2 where they like looked good against just G2. So I don't really know what to think about PSG Talon as a team. They seem, I mean, I think they just kind of like out G2. They were like, we're going to be the ones that play the team fight stuff, and then we're just going to win based off of it. So I actually thought that the Buffalo had more inspiring performances than PSG.
I think the results surprised me because I expected like PSG to be at the bottom and Saigon Buffalo to be like in the 5th or potentially 4th spot. So I think Saigon Buffalo is actually the better team if we look at the highs of their performance. But PSG, I think, had better consistency. So.
All right, there you have it. The team's still learning and growing. And again, it is kind of cool that PSG Talon is owned and sponsored by Paris Saint-Germain. That is, their jerseys were sick. The little pink fade, I like that. All right.
That's what I say about that. Death to soccer. Anyway,
death to soccer. All right, now's a good time to bring in a couple of comments because we always try to read the comments that you guys put below. We got 2 of them for EG, which will set us up for our EG RNG matchup. Josh Albanet said, Jojo is the opposite of Stalin, to be fair. He's feeding the EU people, not starving them. And then the one lone guy.
Oh, let's unpack that a little bit. So the opposite of Stalin. So who is this about? A Jojo? Okay, so the opposite of Stalin, the communist dictator, would be a fascist dictator. So the opposite of Stalin is Hitler. So you are saying Jojo is literally Hitler.
All right.
I just want to be clear about what you're saying.
I think that they were just going not on politics as much as just like starving versus feeding. Like,
great job, Josh. You did it. You showed
you called Jojo
how
Hitler.
Much.
That's very rude of you.
Yeah, great job. The other one is our boy Tommy, who said he had a really long comment, so I'm just gonna kind of paraphrase it. But he was basically one of the few commenters in our last video that was hopping up on this bad boy, the copium. People are really underestimating EG, lol. The G2 games in their group really didn't matter, and all they had to do was get in the Rumble stage was to beat Osh and use this time to try other shit. EG's tryhard games against Osh were way cleaner than G2's, so I'm not going to act like EG's going to lose to PSG or Buffalo's, lol. They at the very least get 4th, and I can see a world where they play Comfort and take a game or 2 off G2 or RNG. It goes on, but it was pretty good, and he called it. I always like to shout out the people that call their shots early on. So good for you, Tommy.
To be fair, he was right. EG did not lose to PSG Talon or Saigon Buffalo.
He was right. He was very right.
Wait, did we say anything opposite of that? Like, I don't understand. Like,
No, what we said was that EG was the most likely team to make it out, but that it would only take, like, there was always going in these best of ones that are over a very short time period. There's always going to be upsets, and it just depends on who does the upsets that matters. And as it turns out, Evil Geniuses winning a game against T1 was incredibly impactful in the way that this group shook out.
All right, I got to finish this comment then. Let me finish this comment. RNG looks worse than G2 and has a terrible early game for an LPL team historically. This is probably the weakest LPL has looked in 4 years or so. So yeah, I think EG was not at their full strength for obvious reasons in the group stage. There's no benefit from getting first in the group seeding, so it doesn't matter. Let's see how EG plays on Friday before we panic.
What's interesting about this comment is that I think he's also right about RNG. So he possesses the ability to accurately analyze things that don't have to do with EG, which is very interesting. Maybe he should apply some of this to actually looking at EG's gameplay.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that's kind of funny about this whole situation is that, like, yeah, no, I mean, I can get with that. That's probably the weakest that LPL has looked within 4 years. And they're still like number one in the group stage. Like they still look literally like, yeah, I mean, that's how fucking dominant LPL has been. So maybe next time a team looks really good out of Korea, we don't automatically crown them the champion of the world championship, which is not even happening for another 6 months. And we actually let LPL teams compete. How about that? Like, I'm down to watch LPL compete. I thought T1 was slightly better than RNG, but I said slightly, not don't even have the matches played. Fuck it, bro. RNG is they're just dog shit compared to T1. They're just gonna get absolutely stomped. Like, come on, like LPL teams fight. LPL teams are pretty fucking good. Why does everyone want to discredit them?
Also, you know, this would be like saying that, you know, when Cortez showed up in Mexico and got the entire Aztec Empire sick with Western diseases and then beat them, that the diseases were not a factor in the complete dominance that Cortez exerted. But in fact, like, part of T1's run was the fact that their main opponents were weakened by disease. Okay. They themselves were weakened by disease. With this one? No, it's an accurate analogy about the Aztec Empire and Cortez, you know, as applied to LCK with T1 versus their opponents. But there were flaws. There continued to be pretty obvious flaws with T1, and also their domestic competition was kind of garbage, guys. Like, I'm just hoping that Nuguri makes Dom1 a contender, because T1 was not super challenged.
We're not.
So, and it's not like Gen G was a world beater. Whereas if you compare that to some of the games that we saw from teams like V5 and Top Esports in the LPL playoffs, it was a much more competitive playoff bracket. So we'll just hope that, and obviously we're not going to crown T1 because they stomped their region domestically. Like, that doesn't mean anything if their competition is not great. So we have to wait and see if LCK is going to actually have, you know, 3 or 4 teams that are going to be competitive on a world level, because we know LPL is going to have that.
Cries and rookie. Man.
We're just never going to get to see a Faker rookie matchup. We're just cursed forever, I guess. It's fucking sucks.
This was the best chance we had. All right.
Shout out to Riot, where we can have 2 guys who have been the best 2 mid laners of all time, and Riot has created formats where we just never, ever, ever, ever get to see them play. Even though they've both been playing for like 10 years at this point in time, we just don't get to see it. That's cool. Good job, Riot. Nice job.
Yeah, I think the only time Rookie interacted with Faker is when he was pulling out the group stage like draw in 2017, because that was the special guest that Riot flew out. It was Rookie. I remember that because I was there. All right. So with all that said, EG RNG, they don't look that good compared to the last 4 years of LPL teams. How quickly do they run through them? Is it in 3 games or is it in 4 games?
There is no hope for EG in this matchup. Like I said earlier, this matchup is it's not good for EG. The stylistically, it is very, very bad, because RNG is just better than them at everything that they are good at. So it should just be an absolute pounding of EG. 3-0.
I agree.
You want to see if we can guess the total minutes of in-game gameplay?
Yeah, let's do that.
Best of 5.
Let's gamify it.
Ooh. I'm gonna go
Looking up some
with.
stats.
I'm gonna go with 90 minutes
90 minutes.
in game time.
Yeah.
In game time. That's still pretty fast.
I'll go 85. I mean,
Oh my God, he's going
That's
bigger.
worse.
yeah, but dude, like 90 minutes is a 30-minute game. What were the first two? What were the first two?
The second one was like 25 minutes.
34
Okay,
minutes. Rumble game 1, RNG EG 34 minutes.
Second one was
Game
really 34 minutes?
Yeah, it was
What was
34
that game?
minutes. Game 2, the second one was 24 minutes. So 85, pretty close. Let's see.
So they were close to
RNG
60 minutes of game time, which means that my prediction based on available data on averages is, they were averaging about 30 minutes.
Oh my God, they got fucking clapped in this game though. It was 34 minutes, or the enemy team was like Mountain Soul up 8K. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Maybe they won't end it that quickly. But then it's like, dude, what happens if RNG just doesn't play TF, bro? Like, I don't know. Like, they could just not play TF, and then it couldn't go like this. Who knows?
I'm looking up there.
90 minutes. 90 minutes in game time. That's my estimate in the best of 5.
Okie dokie. All right. Well, good luck, EG. I hope you get Nocturne so Kobe can continue to say how confusing it is when paranoia goes down in team fights. That was great.
Did you know that if you're ever around Kobe, he gets he just loses his mind if you just turn off the lights in a room. He just doesn't know what to do. Just walk straight into a wall every time.
Nice.
No, it's not. I mean, maybe it's true. I don't know.
It's
well, I don't know. I mean, based on how he's acting towards paranoia, I can see it being true.
Also, I felt like defending him there, but I don't know. And also, it'd probably be like, why would I know that? So
it's just straight into a wall
Kobe.
Every time with Kobe. Just walk straight into a wall. Turn off the lights.
Team fights are
hard.
All right. So with all that said, there we go. 3-0s. What do we have for G2 T1?
3-1 T1. I think there's a game that they throw or Caps pops off.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1 as well. I mean, I think it's hard to go 3-0 with how T1 has been looking. I don't think they've been looking consistent enough to warrant a 3-0 prediction. I could see it being 3-0 if T1 really shows up and they play confidently, though. Because I mean, T1 still should be the best team at the tournament, right? Like, they shouldn't be actual shit after like a couple games, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know.
G2 were the best team of the tournament at one point.
Yeah, I mean, people told me that, dude. I mean, dude, after my takes, people think I actually hate G2 just because I think that like RNG and T1 are better
here
teams.
we go.
So I mean, who knows? Who knows? I could just be
all right. Let's close this one off with a good old session, a rumble session of God or Dog. And as I said earlier, for me, this was harder. It was going to be fun to just pick Caps again, and we're great, but not the case. So, Dom, let's have you go first. What you got for us for? Let's go Dogs first. Let's go Dogs.
Okay, so my dog.
Normally we go bad, but we'll go bad first.
Actually, kind of hard.
Yeah, it's kind of okay. You know what? I don't actually think this is the worst player of Rumble stage. If I were to go worst player of Rumble stage, I mean, I'll probably have to go someone on the Saigon Buffalo. But I think that's fucked up. I think they overperformed expectations. I would say that Vulcan has been having a dog-like performance. I just feel like so many times he's just getting caught, and the whole game is just lost off him getting caught. I just want to see him stop getting caught so EG can win some of these games. So I'll go him as my dog.
Wow.
No, I'm going Gumayushi, dude. Like, I'm sorry. the past 2 weeks have been really rough for him overall. And as I alluded to earlier, I think he is uncomfortable on this champion pool, and I think that to a certain extent, he's probably a victim of the champions that his team wants to play and thinks are strong within this tournament, like Kalista, that clearly we're not. But he's been playing extremely disrespectfully, even in the group stage as well. He's been getting caught out a lot. Like he simply cannot. If you compare it also to Gala's like really impressive, like very technical, very good positioning, everything that you want out of an AD carry. He's been cavalier and overly aggressive. And if he really wants to compete with the best ADCs in the world, he can't have these level of performances against good international opponents. And in a way, he's kind of wasting some extremely good performances by people like Owner, which is sad. So Owner will be my god, because I think Owner, if you look at the way that T1 plays the early game, I have to believe that it's probably him and Faker in Korea that are dictating the way that T1 plays. Their lane assignments have been really good. The way they play out around pressure has been extremely good. It seems like they have kind of a crystal ball about how these lanes are going to play out and where they can maximize their advantages, where they can trade cross map to get as much gold or objectives as possible. It's been really impressive, and it's led to, you know, T1 having like an average of 3,800 gold lead at 15 minutes into these games. And in League of Legends, you should be an overwhelmingly dominant team if you can do that on average. And it's only been their mid and late game that have been throwing. So I think T1 is going to win this tournament because I think they're going to fix some of those issues and some of their team comp issues. But their early game, I think, really has been powered by Owner doing very, very well.
Who you got, God, Dom?
My god's gonna be Gala. I think that he's just been
very fair,
so fucking good. This guy is like perennially disrespected by people. He was, I think him and Ming were the carries of RNG throughout all of LPL. I think they're showing up better than Gumayusi carry at this tournament. I don't know what this guy needs to do to be considered a top 80 carry in the world, but I mean, if winning an MSI and 2 LPL titles is not enough, like, you should probably start lowering your standards, because this guy is actually a fucking freak. Like, he is so.
Where would you rank him in the LPL ADCs? I'm curious.
Top 2.
With Viper?
With Viper, when Viper actually has the support, not into game. I think Viper is still has the potential to be the best. I think Mako was abysmal this split and made it impossible for Viper to win a lot of the lanes that he could. But yeah, I have him top 2. I think that if you were to go just on performance, I guess you could say top 2 with Jackie Love, but I think he was the best. Photic is also up someone who's up there, but he's pretty raw. But yeah, I think Gull is like one of the absolute best AD carries in the world. I'll take him over anyone in LCK outside of like Gumayusi when Gumayusi looks like Gumayusi. Then I would say it's like close, but I would make the argument that Gull is just better. Because I think that Gala is better on a variety of picks. There's a lot more metas that he can go to. Whereas like Gumayusi looks dominant on the like he's like one of the best Aphelios players. He's good on Jinx. But like I think this tournament has shown that if you're starting to go into like the Kai'Sa tier, you don't want to be fucking with Gala's Kai'Sa. Like his Kai'Sa is some next level shit. I think he's got a level of proficiency that we haven't seen on that champion before. I think he's the best Kai'Sa player that's ever played the champion competitively.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So, yeah, I mean, I also just really like the player. I think that Gala is just such a fucking sick AD carry to have on your team.
All right, Gala, it is. I got skipped. My dog. Oh, did you see that? It just zipped across the screen again. It's another fucking Vex ult that Bay just takes in and dies yet again. Holy shit! It's nightmares or dreams of Bay just coming across, pressing R again, and dying on the Vex. Also, when your standout game is a 0-0-10 Lissandra game, because that was your win, like, good job.
I think that's very fair. If we were actually looking at like the actual worst player, I think it has been Bay. Because like as bad as Froggy and Bean J have been at times, they also have done really well at other times.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah. Bay was really underwhelming. Bad. Yeah, it's tough. He's filling big shoes, sure, but that was not it. And then God for me was Owner as well. I alluded to it earlier in the show, but I think the way that he's dictating the pace is really cool. I guess the closest that we get to see to it is what Inspired does for his squad, like dictating the pace, but Inspired does it in a much more like farm first and then fight, whereas Owner is he's right spot, right time. It is very fun to watch. It is very fun to watch.
By the way, Dom, just as an aside about Gala's Kai'Sa, it's by far his most played champion in his career at 78 games, and he has a 64% win rate on it, which is absolutely nuts when you consider that many of these games have come in LPL playoffs or international events where he's been playing a lot of Kai'Sa. So to maintain,
or he had crying.
That's very fair. He had crying. That was truly the dark times. But 64% win rate across 78 games is really impressive.
Yeah, and a lot of those games also came when he was on fucking Sino Dragon and Dominus Esports, which were like not top teams in LPL. So like, and he was really good with it within those teams. So, I mean, I would love to see what his win rate is recently, because I feel like if you just took the last 2 years since he's been on RNG, it's going to be like 80% plus.
Well, let me tell you, we don't have to wonder. We don't have to wonder.
On Games of Legends, let's see it.
So on this year, he hasn't played a lot of Kai'Sa, which makes sense. He's only played 3 games, but last year he played 42 with a 71% win rate. So not fucking bad. Not fucking bad.
He's kind of a freak.
All right. Okay. With that is our Rumble stage episode of The Jungle. Make sure that all you friends at home, make sure to like and subscribe. We are 1K away from having more more subscribers than the worst team in the LEC. And again, we know that a ton of you watch this. Literally, 70 tons? Is that right? Did I math that right? Or is it 35 tons? I don't remember. Yeah, 70 tons of you watch 35. It. So,
well, yeah, 35 tons because 2,000 pounds. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of you watch this and not all of you are subscribing. So give us a little subscription here to the channel. Again, Dom will be doing the viewings for these knockout stage matches. And then Monty as well, always active on Twitter for the content that you desire. Monty, when you're like the ocean skins came out recently, and you're like, time to make some money. Boom, there it is. Like that was a good one.
I mean, what can you say? This is what they do. If they really wanted to make money, they just make a stripper line. Return the fucking Katarina stripper recall animation, Riot. Why'd you take it away? Look, as we know, the only way to get out of the financial hole that has been caused by you having to pay $100 million to every woman who's ever worked at your entire company is now to make skins where you show partially naked women. That is the ethical way to get out of this situation, right? Good job to you. Winning again. Nice.
I didn't recite. That was not me that said that.
That was, yeah. All right. That was Monty. With that, we will depart with the Monty cackle, and we'll bring that back next week to break down the action from MSI. We'll see y'all later.